My name is Madison Sterling. I'm 34, and yesterday my sister Emma screamed at me to get out of her perfect wedding at the Ocean View Resort. What she didn't know, I own the entire luxury property chain worth $12 million. The look on her face when security handed her the eviction notice still gives me chills. But this story isn't just about money or revenge. It's about 15 years of family betrayal, stolen inheritance, and the sweet moment when karma finally came knocking at Emma's designer wedding dress. Before we dive into this wild family drama that's about to unfold, I'm curious. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. And if you're ready for a story about family secrets, ultimate revenge, and justice finally being served, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because this tale of sisterly betrayal will blow your mind. Trust me, you won't see this twist coming. Growing up, Emma and I were supposed to be partners in our family's hospitality empire. Our grandmother, Margaret Sterling, had built a small chain of boutique resorts along the California coast, starting in the 1960s. By the time I was born, Sterling Resorts was a respected name in luxury hospitality, with 5 properties generating steady income for 3 generations. Emma was the golden child, 3 years older, charming, beautiful, and according to our parents, destined to take over the family business. I was the quiet one, the numbers girl who actually understood profit margins and guest satisfaction metrics, while Emma focused on Instagram-worthy marketing photos and networking at charity galas. When I turned 18, Grandma Margaret pulled me aside during our annual family Christmas dinner at the flagship Ocean View Resort. Her weathered hands held mine as she whispered something that would change everything. "Madison, you understand this business in ways Emma never will. You see, the soul of hospitality, not just the glamour. I've made provisions." At the time I thought she meant I'd have some role in the company. Maybe manage one property while Emma handled the corporate side. I was studying hospitality management at UC San Diego, working summers at our resorts, learning every department from housekeeping to fine dining. Emma was at USC studying communications, spending her internships at talent agencies and fashion companies. Our parents, Robert and Patricia Sterling, had always made it clear that Emma would inherit the business. She was the face of the family, the one who looked perfect in Forbes magazine photos and charity event pictures. I was support staff, the reliable daughter who'd help Emma succeed. But everything changed when Grandma Margaret passed away suddenly during my junior year of college. The reading of her will was scheduled for the following week, and our family gathered in the lawyer's mahogany-paneled office, expecting a straightforward transfer of assets. Emma sat confidently next to our parents, already making plans to rebrand the resorts with a more contemporary luxury approach. I noticed she'd brought a portfolio of design ideas, complete with mood boards and marketing strategies that would modernize what she called our dated family aesthetic. When the lawyer Harold Brennan began reading the will, everything seemed normal at first. Small bequests to longtime employees, charitable donations to causes, grandma-supported family heirlooms distributed among relatives. Then came the business assets. To my granddaughter Madison Sterling, who possesses the vision and integrity to preserve our family's hospitality legacy, I leave my controlling shares of Sterling Resorts, comprising 68% ownership of all 5 properties, the corporate headquarters, and all associated assets valued at approximately $12 million. The silence in that room was deafening. Emma's portfolio slipped from her hands, papers scattering across the Persian rug. Our parents sat frozen while I felt the world shift beneath my feet. At 21, I just inherited a multi-million-dollar resort empire. But the will wasn't finished. Harold continued reading a letter Grandma had written specifically for this moment. Emma will receive a trust fund of $500,000 and a position within the company should she choose to accept it, under Madison's leadership. This decision reflects my observation that Madison understands our guests seek authentic experiences, not manufactured luxury. She knows that true hospitality comes from genuine care, not social media metrics. The aftermath was immediate and brutal. Emma stormed out, screaming that the will was invalid, that Grandma had been manipulated, that I'd somehow influenced her decision. Our parents demanded I contest the will myself, give Emma what they considered her rightful inheritance. When I refused, citing Grandma's clear mental competency and detailed reasoning, I became the family villain overnight. The next decade transformed me from a college student into a businesswoman, but it cost me my family. Emma refused to work under my leadership, instead using her trust fund to start a luxury event planning company that specialized in high-end weddings. Our parents supported her venture enthusiastically, while treating my resort management like a temporary inconvenience. Family dinners became battlegrounds. Every holiday gathering featured passive-aggressive comments about stolen opportunities and unfair advantages. Emma would arrive with her latest boyfriend, always someone from old money families or entertainment industry connections, making sure everyone knew she was succeeding despite being cheated out of her inheritance. Meanwhile, I was actually running the resorts. I promoted long-time employees who'd been overlooked, implemented sustainable practices that reduced costs while improving guest experiences, and expanded our corporate retreat programs. Within 5 years, I'd increased revenue by 38% and earned industry recognition for innovative hospitality management. But none of that mattered to my family. At Emma's engagement party 2 years ago, held at an exclusive country club, she made a point of introducing me to her wealthy friends as my little sister who got lucky with Grandma's will. When I tried to congratulate her on her engagement to Marcus Whitfield, heir to a commercial real estate fortune, she smiled coldly and said, "At least some of us earned our success the right way." The family dynamics reached a breaking point last Christmas, when Emma announced she'd be holding her wedding at the Ocean View Resort. Not asking to book it, announcing it. Our parents had apparently promised her the venue as their wedding gift, assuming I'd provide it free of charge as some kind of family obligation. When I explained that the Ocean View was already booked for that weekend, with a corporate retreat that had been planned for 8 months, Emma exploded. She accused me of deliberately sabotaging her wedding, of being jealous that she'd found love, while I remained single and bitter. Our father actually demanded I cancel the corporate booking, suggesting that family should come before business. That's when I realized they'd never accepted my ownership of Sterling Resorts. In their minds, I was still just holding the properties temporarily, until Emma decided she wanted them back. They expected me to prioritize her needs over legitimate business obligations, to prove my family loyalty by sacrificing professional commitments. I offered alternative dates when the resort would be available. Even offered to host her wedding at our newer Malibu property free of charge. But Emma wanted the Ocean View specifically, the flagship resort where our grandparents had honeymooned, the most prestigious venue in our collection. When I couldn't provide it on her demanded date, she declared war. Emma hired a publicist and began spreading stories about how I'd stolen the family business, and was now refusing to help my own sister's wedding. She gave interviews to local society magazines portraying herself as the victim of family greed, the rightful heiress denied her legacy by a manipulative younger sister who'd somehow tricked an elderly woman. The worst part was watching our parents enable her narrative. They never once asked about my side of the story, never acknowledged that I'd spent years building the business Grandma had entrusted to me. Instead, they joined Emma's campaign, calling extended family members to complain about my selfishness and lack of family values. 6 months before Emma's wedding, she called me with what she called her final offer. If I signed over majority ownership of Sterling Resorts to her, she'd allow me to keep one property and work as a manager under her leadership. She framed it as generosity, a chance for me to do the right thing and restore family harmony. When I declined, she promised I'd regret it. She'd found a way to have her perfect wedding at the Ocean View Resort, and afterward she'd make sure everyone knew exactly what kind of person I really was. The threat was clear: comply or face complete family exile. The morning of Emma's wedding dawned perfect. Crystal blue skies, gentle ocean breeze. The kind of California weather that makes resort guests feel like they're living in a postcard. I'd driven down to the Ocean View Resort not to attend the wedding but to oversee the transition between our departing corporate guests and the incoming weekend leisure bookings. What I found was chaos. Emma had somehow convinced our weekend front desk manager to allow her wedding party early access to the resort's premium suites, despite having no official booking. When I walked into the lobby at 9 a.m., I discovered 20 of her closest friends had essentially taken over the entire ground floor, using our business center as their personal getting-ready space, complete with professional hair, stylists, makeup artists, and a photographer, capturing every angle of their exclusive resort weekend. The corporate retreat guests, who'd paid premium rates for their final morning at the resort, were being asked to navigate around wedding decorations that had mysteriously appeared overnight in our main conference room. Emma had hired an event coordinator who was directing staff members, my employees, to rearrange furniture and lighting to accommodate her photographer's vision. I found Emma in our presidential suite, the one reserved for VIP guests paying $4,000 per night, surrounded by bridesmaids and getting her hair done by a celebrity stylist who'd apparently been promised exclusive resort access as part of her fee. She was wearing a silk robe embroidered with Mrs. Whitfield and holding court like she owned the place. When she saw me, her perfectly contoured face shifted into that familiar expression of entitled annoyance. "Madison, you're early. We're not quite ready for you to start working yet." She turned to her maid of honor, her best friend since college, who'd always treated me like the annoying little sister. "Can you ask housekeeping to bring more champagne? And tell them we'll need fresh flowers in all the bathroom arrangements." This was the moment I'd been preparing for, though I hadn't expected it to unfold quite like this. I pulled out my phone and made 2 calls. First, to Marcus, our head of security, asking him to come to the presidential suite immediately. Second, to Harold Brennan, our family lawyer who'd been standing by all morning. "Emma," I said quietly, "I need to see your booking confirmation for today's events." She laughed, that tinkling sound she'd perfected for social media videos. "Oh, Madison, don't be ridiculous. Daddy confirmed everything weeks ago. This is family business, not resort business." Her bridesmaids giggled, clearly enjoying what they perceived as my petty attempt to create drama on Emma's special day. But I pressed on. "Show me the contract. Show me the payment confirmation. Show me any documentation that gives you authorization to use these facilities today." Emma's smile faltered slightly. "I don't need documentation to use my own family's resort. These people don't understand that we own this place, that this is where Sterling family celebrations happen." She gestured broadly at her entourage. "Everyone knows the ocean view is the Sterling family estate." That's when Marcus arrived, followed by our weekend operations manager Jennifer, who looked stressed and confused. Behind them came Harold Brennan, carrying a leather briefcase and wearing the serious expression that meant business. "Ladies," I announced to the room, "I'm Madison Sterling, owner and CEO of Sterling Resorts. This facility is currently operating under a corporate booking that extends until checkout time today at 11 a.m. Any unauthorized use of resort facilities constitutes trespassing." The room went silent except for the hairdryer, which Emma's stylist quickly turned off. Emma stood up so fast her silk robe billowed dramatically. "What are you talking about? This is my wedding day at my family's resort. You can't throw out your own sister." I pulled out the official ownership documents Harold had prepared, along with the current booking schedules and trespassing notices he'd drawn up just in case. "Emma, you have no legal claim to these facilities. You have no booking, no contract, and no authorization to be here. You have 15 minutes to gather your belongings and vacate the premises, or resort security will escort you out." The maid of honor jumped up, her phone already recording. "This is insane. You're seriously going to ruin your sister's wedding over paperwork? What kind of monster are you?" But Emma's face had gone pale under her professional makeup. For the first time in years, I saw fear in her eyes instead of entitlement. "Madison, you can't do this. Our parents will never forgive you. The whole family will disown you completely." I felt something shift inside me, like a weight I'd been carrying for 15 years suddenly lifting. "Emma, they already have. Ready for the moment you've all been waiting for." Because what happened next changed everything. Not just for Emma's wedding day, but for our entire family's understanding of power, consequences, and the price of underestimating the quiet sister who actually built something while everyone else was busy taking credit. Emma's transformation from blushing bride to furious family dictator happened in real time. As her bridesmaids hurriedly packed makeup cases and emergency champagne bottles, she planted herself in front of me like she used to do when we were children, and she wanted to establish dominance. "You know what, Madison Fine? You want to play hardball, let's play hardball." Her voice had dropped to that dangerous whisper she'd perfected during years of society charity work. "You think owning some hotels makes you powerful. I've been building connections while you've been playing innkeeper. Marcus's family has development contracts worth 50 times what your little resort chain is valued at." She pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. "I'm calling Daddy right now, and then our lawyer, and then every society reporter in Southern California. By tomorrow morning, everyone will know that Madison Sterling destroyed her own sister's wedding out of petty jealousy. Your reputation will be finished." What Emma didn't realize was that Harold Brennan wasn't just our family lawyer. He'd been Grandma Margaret's personal attorney for 30 years. He'd seen this exact dynamic play out in dozens of wealthy families, and he'd prepared for this moment long before Emma had even gotten engaged. "Miss Sterling," Harold addressed Emma formally, "before you make any calls, you should understand the full legal situation. Your sister has been remarkably patient with your family's assumptions about property ownership. However, this unauthorized use of resort facilities, combined with your public statements claiming ownership you don't possess, constitutes actionable fraud." Emma's face went white under her foundation. "What are you talking about? I never claimed to own anything." Harold opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of printed pages. "These are screenshots from your social media accounts over the past 6 months, your interviews with California Society magazine, and statements from your wedding planner advertising. Exclusive access to the Sterling family. You've been publicly misrepresenting your relationship to these properties for commercial benefit." Jennifer, our operations manager, stepped forward holding an iPad. "Emma, we also have security footage of your event coordinator instructing our staff that you were the real owner and that they should follow your directions regardless of official protocols. 3 of our employees were told they'd be fired if they didn't comply with your setup requests." The bridesmaids were looking increasingly uncomfortable, their phones capturing every moment of what was clearly not going according to plan. Emma's maid of honor, who'd been so confident moments earlier, was edging toward the door. "This is ridiculous," Emma snapped, but I could hear the uncertainty creeping into her voice. "I'm family. I have every right to be here." "Actually," I said quietly, "you don't. Grandma Margaret's will specifically included clauses about family members respecting business operations." "Harold, would you mind explaining the family harassment provisions?" Harold nodded gravely. "The will includes specific language protecting Sterling Resorts from family interference. Given the documented pattern of public misrepresentation and attempted operational disruption, Madison would be well within her rights to pursue legal action for damages to business reputation and operational efficiency." Emma looked around the room desperately, as if expecting someone to come to her rescue. Her phone started buzzing with calls, probably our parents wondering why their daughter's perfect wedding was apparently falling apart. But for the first time in our adult relationship, Emma had no allies, no backup plan, no way to manipulate the situation to her advantage. "Look," I said, softening my voice slightly, "it doesn't have to be like this. I've arranged for your wedding to take place at the Malibu property exactly as I offered months ago. It's smaller but still beautiful, and it's available right now. The photographer catering flowers, everything can be transferred. This can still be a lovely wedding day." But Emma was past reasoning. Years of entitlement and family enabling had convinced her that consequences didn't apply to her, that tears and tantrums could solve any problem. "No, I don't want your charity resort. I want my wedding at the Ocean View, the way it was supposed to be." She turned to her bridesmaids, desperate to regain control. "Girls, this is insane. Help me call my parents, call Marcus, call someone who can fix this." But her friends were already gathering their belongings, clearly uncomfortable with the legal implications Harold had outlined. The maid of honor, checking her phone, looked up with alarm. "Emma, Marcus has been calling you for 20 minutes. There's something about the country club. They're saying there's a problem with the reception venue." Emma's face went from pale to gray. "What kind of problem?" I exchanged glances with Harold, who nodded almost imperceptibly. This was the moment I'd been preparing for, the culmination of months of careful planning that Emma had inadvertently set into motion with her campaign against me. "Emma," I said carefully, "when you spent the last 6 months publicly claiming that Sterling Resorts was your rightful inheritance and that I'd somehow cheated you out of your property, you made some very specific accusations about my business practices and personal integrity." Her phone kept buzzing, but she seemed afraid to answer it now. "Those accusations were investigated by the Better Business Bureau and the California Tourism Board. When they found no evidence to support your claims, because my business practices are impeccable, and Grandma's will was completely legal, they were required to report attempted defamation to your wedding venues." Emma's hands started shaking. "What are you saying?" Harold stepped forward with another set of documents. "The country club has canceled your reception contract due to concerns about your character and business integrity. They don't want to be associated with someone who makes false public accusations about family businesses. It's in their standard morality clause." The room fell completely silent except for the sound of Emma's ragged breathing. Her perfect wedding day, carefully planned and publicly promoted for months, was disintegrating in real time. What happened next was 15 years of suppressed family dysfunction exploding all at once. Emma's phone rang, and this time she answered it, her voice cracking as she said, "Hello, Marcus." I couldn't hear his side of the conversation, but I could see Emma's face crumbling as she listened. "What do you mean, cancelled?" "All of it. But we sent deposits." "Yes, I understand. No, I can explain everything." Her voice trailed off as she realized there was nothing left to explain. When she hung up, she looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Complete helplessness. "Marcus is calling off the wedding. His parents found out about the venue cancellations and they're saying our family has too much public drama for their reputation they don't want to be associated with." She couldn't finish the sentence, but I knew what she meant. The Whitfield family had built their fortune on commercial real estate and conservative investments. They valued stability, discretion, and predictable family dynamics. Emma's very public campaign against me, combined with the legal implications Harold had outlined, made her a liability they couldn't afford. "Emma," I said gently, "this didn't have to happen. If you'd just accepted my offer to use the Malibu property months ago, none of this would." "Don't," she screamed, finally losing the composure she'd maintained for her bridesmaids' cameras. "Don't you dare act like this is my fault. You planned this, you set me up." Her accusation hung in the air, and I realized this was the moment of truth. The choice between continuing our family's cycle of dysfunction or finally breaking free from it. "You're right," I said quietly. "I did plan this." Emma's bridesmaids gasped their phones, capturing what they thought was my confession. But I continued, looking directly at Emma. "I planned for the possibility that you'd try to take over my resort without permission. I planned for you to continue publicly misrepresenting your relationship to my business. I planned for you to ignore every reasonable compromise I offered." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "What I didn't plan was for you to destroy your own relationship with Marcus in the process." Harold cleared his throat diplomatically. "Perhaps we should give the ladies privacy to process this situation." But Emma wasn't done. As her bridesmaids filed out awkwardly, phones still recording, she turned to me with pure venom in her voice. "You know what the worst part is? Grandma would be ashamed of you. She believed in family loyalty and taking care of each other. She never meant for you to use her gift to hurt the people who love you." For the first time in this entire confrontation, I felt a stab of real pain. Because Emma was partly right. Grandma Margaret had valued family above everything else. But she'd also been a shrewd businesswoman who'd built Sterling Resorts through decades of difficult decisions and unwavering principles. "Emma," I said slowly, "Grandma Margaret spent 40 years building something meaningful. She chose me to continue that legacy, not because she didn't love you, but because she knew I'd protect what she built. You've spent the last 6 months trying to tear it down out of spite." Emma's phone buzzed again. Probably our parents demanding explanations for the chaos their golden daughter had created. She looked at the screen and then back at me, and for just a moment I saw the sister I'd grown up with instead of the entitled stranger she'd become. "I hate you," she whispered, but there was no conviction behind it anymore. "I hate that you got everything I wanted. I hate that you're successful. I hate that Grandma loved you more than me." "She didn't love me more," I said truthfully. "She just understood that love and business aren't the same thing. You can love someone completely and still not trust them with your life's work." Emma gathered her silk robe around herself like armor and walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back one last time. "This isn't over, Madison. Maybe I lost Marcus, maybe I lost the venues, maybe I lost this wedding. But I still have Mama and Daddy, and they'll never forgive you for this." After she left, I stood alone in the presidential suite that had been the center of so much family drama, looking out at the Pacific Ocean that Grandma Margaret had loved so much. Harold was handling the legal paperwork, Jennifer was coordinating with housekeeping to restore the suite for our next guest, and Marcus was ensuring that Emma and her entourage left the property peacefully. But I felt hollow instead of victorious. I'd protected my business, enforced my boundaries, and finally stood up to 15 years of family manipulation. So, why did it feel like I'd lost something irreplaceable? My phone rang. Our parents probably calling to scream at me for ruining Emma's life. For the first time in years, I let it go to voicemail. Whatever they had to say could wait until I figured out whether protecting my grandmother's legacy had been worth losing my family forever. 3 months later, I'm sitting in the same presidential suite where Emma's wedding dreams died, but everything has changed. The room is filled with flowers. Not wedding arrangements, but congratulatory bouquets from industry colleagues, celebrating Sterling Resorts being named California's top boutique hotel chain by Travel and Leisure magazine. The aftermath of Emma's wedding disaster played out exactly as I'd expected, but with some surprises I never saw coming. Our parents did exactly what Emma predicted. They called me everything from heartless to vindictive to a disgrace to the family name. They demanded I make things right by giving Emma a controlling stake in the business and publicly apologizing for sabotaging her happiness. When I refused, they cut contact completely. No holiday invitations, no family updates, no acknowledgement that their younger daughter even existed. It hurt more than I'd anticipated, but it also clarified something I'd been avoiding for years. They'd never really seen me as family anyway, just as an obstacle to Emma getting what they thought she deserved. Emma herself disappeared from social media for 6 weeks, which in her world was essentially exile. When she finally resurfaced, it was with a completely different narrative. She'd started a blog called Entitled No More about learning from privilege and discovering authentic success. Her first post was titled How I Lost Everything and Found Myself, a surprisingly honest account of our family dynamics that painted me as the responsible sister who'd tried to help her despite years of mistreatment. The blog went viral, not because people sympathized with Emma's lost wedding, but because her story resonated with readers who'd grown up in families where entitlement masked deeper dysfunction. She started getting speaking engagements at colleges and women's organizations, talking about overcoming privilege and building genuine relationships. Marcus Whitfield interestingly reached out to me through Harold Brennan. He wanted to apologize for his family's hasty judgment and to understand what had really happened. When I told him the full story, including Emma's years of public accusations and her unauthorized use of my property, he was horrified. He'd had no idea Emma had been systematically misrepresenting her relationship to Sterling Resorts. "She told me you two had a partnership," he said during our coffee meeting in Los Angeles. "That you managed the day-to-day operations while she handled family relations and marketing. She made it sound like you were deliberately excluding her from her own inheritance." Marcus and I became friends, bonding over our shared experience of family businesses and complicated sibling dynamics. His own brother had tried to force him out of their real estate company, so he understood the delicate balance between family loyalty and business integrity. When he started dating one of my former college roommates 6 months later, I was genuinely happy for both of them. But the biggest surprise came from an unexpected source, Grandma Margaret's personal journals, which Harold discovered while settling some final estate paperwork. Apparently, she'd been documenting our family dynamics for years, trying to understand how to protect her life's work while maintaining family relationships. Her entries about Emma were heartbreaking, but clear. Emma sees the resorts as symbols of status rather than businesses built on service. She loves the idea of ownership but shows no interest in the daily work that creates guest satisfaction. Madison understands that hospitality is about caring for people, not impressing them. About our parents, she was more direct. Robert and Patricia have spoiled Emma to the point where she believes wanting something entitles her to having it. They've taught her that tears and tantrums can override logic and fairness. Madison has learned to work for what she wants, but Emma expects it to be given to her. The most revealing entry was dated just 3 months before she died. "I pray I'm making the right decision leaving the resorts to Madison. Emma will never forgive me." And Robert and Patricia will blame Madison for what they see as their daughter being cheated. But businesses require leaders who understand consequences, not just privileges. Madison has earned this responsibility through years of genuine interest and hard work. Reading those words helped heal something I didn't even realize was broken. Grandma hadn't chosen me over Emma out of favoritism. She'd made a careful business decision based on years of observation and genuine concern for the legacy she'd spent her lifetime building. Today, Sterling Resorts employs over 300 people across 7 properties. We've expanded twice since Emma's wedding disaster, adding locations in Oregon and Washington. Our employee satisfaction ratings are among the highest in the industry. Our sustainability practices have won national recognition, and our guest reviews consistently praise the authentic, caring service that Grandma Margaret always coming. Valued. Emma and I have started talking again, tentatively and carefully. Her blog success led to a book deal, and she's writing about family privilege, personal responsibility, and the difference between inherited status and earned achievement. She called me last month to ask if she could interview me for a chapter about forgiveness and family business dynamics. "I want to understand," she said, during our first real conversation in years, "how you kept caring about the business when everyone was telling you that you didn't deserve it." I told her the truth, that I'd nearly given up dozens of times, that there were nights I'd considered selling everything just to end the family conflict. But every time I walked through one of our resorts and saw employees who'd built careers with us, guests who'd chosen us for their most important celebrations, or read reviews from families who'd created lasting memories in our properties, I remembered why Grandma Margaret had trusted me with her legacy. "It was never really about us," I explained to Emma. "It was about all the people whose lives and livelihoods depend on these resorts continuing to succeed." Grandma understood that business ownership is really stewardship. You're not just responsible to yourself or even your family, but to everyone who's invested their trust in what you've built. As I finish writing this story, I'm looking out at the same Pacific Ocean view that inspired Grandma Margaret to build the first Ocean View resort 60 years ago. Tomorrow, we're hosting a wedding for a couple who met as employees at our Portland property. He was in housekeeping, she was in guest services, and they fell in love over late-night inventory counts and shared jokes about demanding guests. Their wedding will be everything Emma's wasn't: genuine, joyful, surrounded by people who love them for who they are rather than what they possess. The bride asked specifically if they could use the presidential suite where the famous Sterling sister showdown happened, because she said it represented the difference between earned happiness and entitled expectations. So here's what I learned from this whole crazy family revenge saga. Sometimes protecting what matters means losing people you love. Sometimes standing up for yourself costs more than backing down. But sometimes, just sometimes, doing the right thing despite the consequences creates space for better relationships, authentic success, and the kind of justice that doesn't require revenge because it's built on truth instead of manipulation. The question I keep getting asked, especially after Emma's blog posts went viral, is whether I regret how everything played out. Would I have handled things differently if I'd known the full cost of standing my ground? And honestly, that's what I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and personal integrity? Have you ever had to protect something you'd worked for against people who felt entitled to it? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because these kinds of family dynamics are way more common than any of us want to admit. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been the responsible sibling dealing with entitled family members, or if you just love a good family karma story, smash that like button and hit subscribe for more real-life drama and life lessons. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that sometimes the quiet person who actually does the work ends up winning in the end. Thank you for taking this journey with me, for listening to my family's messy truth, and for understanding that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to enable bad behavior anymore. Here's to building something meaningful, protecting what matters, and learning that real family supports your success instead of demanding you sacrifice it for their comfort. May you all find the courage to stand up for what you've earned, the wisdom to know when love requires boundaries, and the peace that comes from choosing integrity over convenience. Because at the end of the day, the people who truly love you want to see you succeed, even if it means they can't control you anymore.